I think until or unless you do not have moral laws to begin with, this question will always go around in circles. That's what I believe. Because, I mean, when we are
But what moral laws would you demand? Because quite frankly, some moral laws are very, very subjective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Someone saying thou shalt not insult my God, that is a very subjective moral law. No one should get upset because someone insults someone else's law. Now we're back to the point where like you can shoot someone for asking for dage.
No, I'm only suggesting that if a government, like for example, let me give you an example. A person who is getting richer and richer because his business has become successful, and government says that to rich people we will implement more taxes. Now, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Will this not regulate the society? Will this not regulate the society somewhat? And the other thing is about a couple of things I would like to mention about this Islamic socialism, which suggests that money should have intrinsic value, that it should be divorced from interest and loans and all those kind of things. What do you think? What do you people have to say about that? Is this a good thing? I think that's a good thing.
Is it an Islamic like law that I can't even have a loan? Like I as a woman, I don't think can even have a loan in Islamic law.
Money should have intrinsic value. What in the hell does that even mean?
This means
No.
this. Let me.
Foundational, guys.
Hang on. Let's explain that. He said money should have intrinsic value.
It means
I'm honestly saying, what in the hell does that even mean?
that means that
Please define. Please define.
it means
Far more important question.
it means
Chill.
no it means
Let him talk. Let Islam talk.
it means that it should be divorced from loans and interests, right? So money is, for example, if I've taken debt from somebody and doesn't pay him back, so I will have to pay double. So money becomes additional. Intrinsic money means that the money should be in balance. It should. Right now, do you know, right now almost all of the countries in the world are in debt. How is this possible? Even how is this possible without loan and interest? By the way, what idea do you people support? Socialism versus communism, capitalism? Which is the best, do you think, among the three? I think this is a good discussion on.
Auntie, that's your cue.
Yeah, and you've been quiet.
I kind of drift between communism and socialism. Can't quite. No, I'm an extreme.
You're pretty libertarian, aren't you, Auntie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am as capitalist as I think one can be.
Yeah.
Right. And meanwhile, we try to stay as moderate as possible, and he said can tell you how infuriating that is to both ourselves and others.
I think.
Yeah, but it's also relative, you know, for
First,
some people.
I think so. I myself am a big fan of socialism rather than capitalism or communism, because in the past we have seen how extreme communism in China, all those atheists like Mao and Stalin, what it led to, right? So when governments get
Why did you have to include the fact that they were atheists?
just to tease you people.
Is it important that Hitler was a vegetarian?
No, that wasn't the
Now, should we include that anybody who doesn't a vegetarian?
That wasn't the main point. That was just a little teasing remark. Just to add some flavor to the discussion. I think Mao and Stalin, if you look at the extreme communism, what it has done, and now in this world we are suffering from extreme capitalism to such an extent where the rich is getting richer all the time and the poor is getting poorer all the time. I think socialism is a middle path to both of this, which suggests that yes, capitalism is good, it's better than communism, but it should have some sort of regulations. Yes.
Yeah, can I give you a very interesting take on that?
I love that.
I see government as a company, right? In my view, the government is a monopoly, okay? Because government asks you for money, right? No one checks on the government.
Yes.
No one makes sure that the government functions the way it's supposed to function. It's pretty much just doing, and it's asking for your money for not basically all that much stuff.
They're like a gang,
So,
right?
In my way, in my view, it's a company. Now, I don't like monopolies. I don't like monopolies in Google. I don't like monopolies in Facebook. I don't like monopolies in how they call Koch brothers. And I don't like government monopolies. Because government monopolies will do exactly what extreme capitalism does due to your opinion, but then without anyone stopping them.
Well, yeah.
Yes,
so
that.
You bring up the point that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. I would dispute that. Both the rich and the poor are getting richer. I would much rather be poor by today's standards than poor by any standards of
Absolutely.
the past. Things do tend to. It seems as though the mostly, but not totally, capitalist system that we have been employing for some time has overall increased, like, global wealth.
Yeah, and
like the average person is way
problem.
wealthier now.
There's another problem, which is, who are the people who can give money to their government? It's the rich people. And so even though the government says, we will, chop down on the rich people, they will never do that.
Yes.
If you look at communist China. Communist China has a massive amount of rich people that cannot be touched. Why can they not be touched? Because they're in cahoots with the government. That is what happens if you have too much socialism.
Yeah, we're reminded of how China says that they're capitalist. They're not. They're an authoritarian. Or they say that they're communist. They're not. They're an authoritarian capitalism.
Yeah, but it's a monopoly.
But
It's a massive monopoly. And the reason
they
sorry, I don't want to
Yes.
interrupt.
Yeah, as much as they say they're communist, all of the elites in China are very attentive toward their stock portfolios. So even people in communist countries envy the progress of capitalist countries. We're personally one of those weirdos that thinks that capitalism is great. We've been homeless for off and on for 7 years, but we still like capitalism. Capitalism, it breeds competition, it gets, technology going forward and things like that. Good. We're just of the Simon Whistler persuasion that there should be some kind of stopgap mechanism to keep it from becoming asshole capitalism.
Yes, that's a very.
I have a
I agree.
funny adding to this, because there are so many people in the US who are telling people that Canadian healthcare system is so good. What they don't know is that massive amount of Canadians go over the border to get their healthcare or rather to get their health issues taken care of in the US, because in Canada, because they have quote unquote social system, it's Russian. You cannot, expand it. There is no competition. And so what happens is they often don't have the infrastructure and they often don't have the ability to do anything. And so the people are forced to go and get it somewhere else, in this case in the US. Now the biggest, part of this is that in the US, they say our medication is too expensive, which is absolutely true. Now if they would have a regulation that says you cannot overprice necessary medicine, that would stop that.
Exactly.
However,
Exactly.
that is not a socialist healthcare system. That is a regulation against massive pricing.
But that's a good regulation. But that's a good regulation. Won't you agree? That's a good regulation.
Right. I would say no. I would say you wouldn't need regulation on the prices of products if you didn't already have the pre-existing regulation of patent law. So, like, if these drugs, which were developed, could be produced by anyone, then they would be cheaper. But because patent law offers the creators a monopoly on the creation and production of these products, then they can charge really high prices.
Yeah, if we didn't have the Martin Shkreli's of the world going around being complete assholes about it, because only he can make the product.
Right.
Yeah, no, we see where you're going. We see where you're going. We're for the record, as somebody who's been on the street off and on for so long, we see regulation as necessary at a certain point, but at the same time, we don't want to regulate people into the ground.
I don't think regulation is necessary. I think most of the ailments that regulation seeks to address could otherwise be handled through the natural flow of competition. What I am in favor of, what I think a lot of people say is regulation. I would still want law. I would like my interests and property protected, but the kind of laws that would do that, I just wouldn't call those regulation. Regulation I would see is impositions that the government puts on people to otherwise engage in what would be voluntary activity. Like
when you word it that way, we'd be inclined to say that we're definitely not pro-regulation, we're more anti-deregulation, if you know what we mean.
But isn't that the same thing, though?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
No.
Like, if you have a stupid rule and you get rid of the stupid rule,
Yes.
you get rid of the stupid rule. But that's, like, that's deregulation.
So I would say is regulation being the specific set of rules that stop people from interacting in specific voluntary ways.
Can I add?
If I wanted to pay you less than minimum wage, I couldn't. Even if you would be willing to accept that, and I would be willing to pay it, like that would be a type of regulation that I.
By the way,
and I think the aims,
What did you want to say?
I have a couple of things, especially to say to anti-sleeper, is that a couple of things you mentioned about the great things about capitalism, but the studies sometimes show that there is a massive difference between the upper class and the lower class, which is increasing because I mean, all these people are saying that the 2% of the world has now more than half of the resources. I mean, are all those studies wrong? And secondly, I would propose also an idea to this. Instead of governments regulating all those things, what do you people have to say about the idea of bodies regulating, right? So there are 4 or 5 institutions regulated by a body. Is that a sort of a model that is I think that's a good model that can be productive, that you can make regulations, but it's not under the influence of government completely.
Okay, so for the first one, as to whether or not wealth is being concentrated, it seems as though it is. That is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not necessarily a big fan of equality, but a lot of the ways in which wealth gets concentrated is not necessarily a result of like capitalism following through. Like, it's like we don't live in unfettered capitalism. A lot of the things that concentrate wealth are, for example, like government monopolies and licensure that give special privileges to specific private firms. Were we in like were we living in a world where there were less governments imposing these wills, things might be more like equal than they are now. But even so, equality isn't really one of my goals, and it's not something I'm particularly like. I don't want to champion that. My biggest thing is more so that even in the mostly capitalist system we have now, I'd much rather be poor now than poor then, or poor in a non-capitalist system.
Another thing is also, who exactly is wealthy? Because if you look at the politicians, it's not like they're very poor, and they're the ones who make the regulations. So I doubt that they act against their own self-interest. Plus, if you look in Canada, the vast majority of, wealthiest 10%, at least half of them, if not more, are working for the government.
Yeah, so one of the ways in which, if you are working for the government and you want to make money, you get in bed with the people whom you're regulating, because those are the people who have like the highly concentrated resources and the most like they're the most interested in making sure that they get the regulations that benefit them.
Yeah.
So you have concentrated business interests that lobby government, and they feed off of one another.
And the worst thing is, we're to hit on Anti's point here about if you are in and you want to make money, we really want to establish that some of these states have like their wages, like their salary for senators being barely above the poverty line. Consequently, leaving these elected politicians very little option if they want to, make any money at all and support their family than to take bribes from lobbying corporations and things like that. We do not pay our government workers well in America.
Then what was, maybe I don't think I understood your second question. What was that about specific bodies as opposed
to governments? Yes.
Wait, can you give me an example of such a body? Because I'm not sure I know what you're referring to.
like for example, there are councils and commissions that regulate academic institutions, right? For example, if there are all the academic institutions, universities would be regulated by a single body, right? So recognized, the universities would have affiliation with a, yes.
So what I mean, if you had a body that was regulating all universities, that would seemingly still be a government body, though.
Yeah.
If you were suggesting a non-government body, the thing that strikes me would be like
I think it will
some
have
sort of certification. Oh, pardon?
I think it will have less influence as compared to having direct influence, because at the end of the day, I mean, most of the employees are government employees, right? So they are also government in a way. So I think it will have less impact rather than having a direct government influencing people, and which turns into hostility. The body's framework might be better suited that it will have a bunch of people sort of subordinate to the government, but not directly government taking the initiative. That's what I'm trying to suggest. It will have less impact as compared to
So it sounds as though you're describing a system where these kind of regulatory like dealings are delegated to specific government institutions that are not themselves like the whole government, but answer to various bits of the government.
Like a third-party international regulatory institution whose job it is to take such statistics? Question mark. Like we are equally as confused as anti-sleeper here, but we feel like we're confused for very different reasons.
I think
Yes.
if I understand that he's saying like the government would make various departments that would over.
No, let me say something. Let me say
various
something.
institutions, like a government department that would oversee universities, but is itself not the government.
Let me say something. I think yes, I think one of the things we need to pay much focus on is that should economy ever be regulated or not? Should the capitalistic society ever be regulated or not? Should there be punishments for crimes? I mean, if somebody champions a business,
and
Yes, so
and like an economic regulation are different things, because there are certain crimes that like either side with that overall. Usually crime is on a very different level. If you murder a person, that has nothing to do with your net income and the net income of the other person, or how you make your money. It's usually you killing the other person.
right. So
maybe crime was a bad example.
the distinction, at least in
Maybe crime was a bad example, but let me give another example. Let's say, for example, a body is regulating 10 universities, right? A body is regulating 10 universities that the 10 universities can only accept about $5,000 from their students for a specific degree. Let's take this example. And one university suggests that no, we will just raise the prices sky high to $15,000 or $20,000, and I mean this will be catastrophic to the students, wouldn't it? Right? What about the students? So there should be some sort of regulation that which would be better for the entire people, right?
Or you allow all kinds of universities to pop up, and then you can have a competitive university who says, you know what, screw this, will make it cheaper.
So this is what.
But this competition will have long-term bad effects, right, for the society.
Well, when the goals of regulation, for example, what you were just bringing in is you want tuition to be affordable.
I'm trying to suggest. Can I say one thing? I'm trying to suggest that many of the academic values, moral values, are also now under the hands of economy, right? This is how the world is turning into. Economy is regulating almost everything now: money, education, moral values,
That's why the universities are so bad.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you have a lot of money, you can easily get a PhD in this these days, can't you? Everywhere in the world, it's happening like this, right? So education is now losing its value.
As having a grandfather who has his own PhD and was the dean of a university. We can guarantee you a PhD is not easy to get, even if you have the money. You have to do work, you have to do a thesis, it has to be presented to peer review. PhDs aren't just like something you can go on down like to the belt shop and buy for $120 or whatever. But more importantly, we want to point out the systems you're talking about are already present in America. We already have third-party, non-governmental organizations whose job it is to track and monitor various statistics and various university leaks. And
also they're very much, issue for fraud. Like, for example, if you have particular organizations and there is no control over those organizations, for example, if you have an organization and that organization gets money from China, then you can guess how many Chinese students suddenly will pop up in that university.
Yes,
The controller of the university now gets the money from China, so the controller of the university will put pressure on the university to get the people from China. No matter where you put the control is not, working
the
out.
buck has to stop somewhere.
Yes, that's the point. That's the point, because it should stop to a certain extent, where we say that somewhere moral values and academic values are, those are also values, right? And they should have their space, because if you, like the example I gave, you are destroying the career of a lot of students, right? If one institute says that no, we will just raise our prices, and this competition leads to raising prices by other universities, this will have deleterious effects in terms of attaining education for all people, right? So academic values will be
hold on, I need to respond to this.
Yeah.
Because the effect of competition is not to drive up prices. That it is the other way around. If you have a university that is disproportionately charging high prices as compared to other universities, and you don't have regulation in regards to what you can or can't charge, then that university, unless it is providing a superior education, has put itself at a competitive disadvantage. Because now you can go to a cheaper university, and that is the tendency of competitive markets, is that they will undercut one another.
Plus, you will have the ability, if you are a cheaper university or want to make a new university, now that the other universities are so expensive, you can be like, okay, I hop in and I make it cheap and everyone will come to my place. So I will make a lot of money because I am the cheaper university.
I think it's really important to note that the least successful universities in America, by statistic of, fewest students passed, fewest courses available, etc., across the board are almost always the most inflated priced universities. So these universities that charge, exorbitant amounts for that are actually going against competition, because they aren't even providing a good education, and they are requiring people to sometimes pay several $100,000 just for a bachelor's degree and things like that. And more importantly, can we just, anti-sleeper, you'll probably jump on this one. It is the fiduciary duty of a shareholder in any company to get as much profit as possible. That's literally a thing we have called a fiduciary duty. So they are very much incentivized. Morals and ethics have nothing to do with the fiduciary duty. You are incentivized wholeheartedly to ensure that your shareholders and yourself, of course, being part of those shareholders, profit as much as you can feasibly allow. And obviously, humans have a tendency to overreach, but in general, combined with things like the Supreme Court and stuff like that, the fiduciary duty tends to march progress pretty well. It incentivizes, pharmaceutical companies to develop newer, cheaper drugs.
At the cost of the employees?
Not necessarily. The fiduciary duty has absolutely nothing to do with
it. It feels like you are making fiduciary duty, like raising profits, to be the most important thing, where the people working in the factory trying to feed their families were not your responsibility. Being you a person who chose to business and have employees, it's not your fault some jackass chose to work for you who had kids to feed. Fuck them, right?
Well, unfortunately, as far as the actual economy of America goes, yes, that is the point of view. But the primary reason that we brought the fiduciary duty up is that Islamic response brought up, this idea of morals and ethics in companies, but
exactly.
At the moment, in our history, we can't consider that like corporatocratically. That's not a thing that people consider.
I mean, what is the purpose of?
Like if you don't stick to particular morals, if you don't stick to particular, ideas or rules, the people will stop buying your product. If there's enough competition. For example, we had this thing now with Coca-Cola, where Coca-Cola just went completely bananas with their, stupid racist ideology of we have to have so and so many people of color and so many white people. And as a result, what they did, people was just, stop drinking Coke. And now they have to backpedal because of the fact that they don't make money. So in a sense, there is a bit of a moral, fix through the money.
And more importantly, there's a present culture involved that you can't just turn back. As much as we're not a fan of the idea of a fiduciary duty, because we're at the dregs of society, we're under the poverty line, it doesn't help us, but we can't just get rid of it. We can't just
When you say we, I own stock in some of these companies. So
okay, but we actually use we use the transformative pronoun, so we're referring to ourselves.
I would like the stock that I own to gain value, but I would not like the companies I'm investing in to intentionally and actively hurt human beings because it's profitable for me. It would not be a good thing from my side.
Can I just add?
And that's why we stood up said that we don't personally agree with the idea of overwhelming unlimited fiduciary duty, but it is the state of things right now in the economy. So you can't, an individual cannot simply turn that around just by wanting it really hard, unfortunately.
I don't think it's as much the state of things in the economy today as it was, say, 140 years ago.
Can I just add one thing? I think a lot of your discussions are very good and a lot of back and forth, and they're quite intelligent. I feel very good. But the question that it's in my mind after hearing from all of you is that should capitalism or whatever ideology, shouldn't they be understood in terms of utilitarianism and ethics, right? What's the point of getting money and more money if it's just rather than $1,000 on my bank account, $10,000? What's the point of that if it doesn't have those ideas of utilitarianism, right? So the greater the money, the greater the happiness for the entire amount.
Let me try this answer and see how it flies. For the individual, do everything you can for you.
Giggler, is it possible that you have the mic away, because I can hardly hear you?
Yes, I think
Was that me?
Okay, better, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so the thing was capitalism in terms of utilitarianism. Capitalism in terms of utilitarianism, that was my question. Shouldn't capitalism or any other ideology be understood in terms of utilitarianism? What's the point of getting more and more money if not the majority of the people are happy, right? So that's the question.
There's goals for two different entities. There's the individual, in which case, if I'm the capitalist, I want to get all I can for me, obviously. There's the society, and there's two different things. And how do we balance those? I don't know. Tough question. It's a question we're trying to answer.
Oh yeah,
how rich should one person be allowed to get? I don't know.
Question is always
what is too rich?
In terms of, I don't know about utilitarianism, but as far as consequentialism goes, like I am pro-capitalism because it produces like better consequences than the alternatives. Like I would see that as a form of utilitarianism. If it produced bad results, then I would not be in favor of it.
Exactly.
I do not see an alternative system producing better results than that.
But in a sense, money allows people to, because you can amass money, but if it's Venezuelan money, it's worth nothing. So the currency has to have a value. Money has to have a value. If you are the only person who has money and no one cares about money, you won't go anywhere. If you are the person with the most money and everyone wants money, well, that changes the idea. I mean, that's why Bitcoin works so funny. But the biggest problem is you always have to get, like, money in and of itself is not value. You have to get value for money. You have to work for, in a sense, money is just a to-do note that says,
Yes,
yeah, I
exactly.
made so much labor, or I have produced so and so much goods. And if there is no goods that you can buy, then the money is worthless.
Yes.
So if everyone is dirt poor and there's nothing for you to achieve as a rich person, then money is useless.
Money's a medium of exchange. So I don't care how much money I have. What I care about is what can I get for the money.
Exactly.
And in that sense, yeah, money's really important because a lot of people think it's important, and I can get a lot of the stuff for the money I have. Yeah, it's complicated.
No, it is important. It is important because a lot of the people have accepted that money is linked to your basic necessities and all those kind of things. So it is important. But the question is, how can we regulate a model where people own businesses? I mean, we allow them the opportunity to increase their businesses, but not compromise the moral values and the academic values and the education. That's my point. That is my point. That
I think
there should be a balance between all these things, all these values.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty simple metric we could apply. When the people doing the labor feel like they're getting screwed, and the people who own the businesses feel like they're getting screwed, we have probably achieved equilibrium.
Oh, the almighty compromise. When nobody feels like one. Hell yeah.
when everybody feels like they're getting fucked, nobody's getting fucked.
So if everybody's sad, everybody's happy. That's the. I think that's a little contradiction.
That's not necessarily true, because it depends. Like, if we were to take taxes out of the equation, that would maybe be the case. But if we leave in taxes, then both would get screwed because all the money goes straight to the government, in which case everyone would get screwed and no one would actually get their fair share.
But assuming for a moment, Seth, assuming for a moment that you're in the U.S., the government is us. We choose our fellow humans who we want to be part of the government. The government is us. If you're in the U.S., are you in the U.S., Seth? I don't think you are. But if you are, if you're unhappy with
I can't hear you.
I can hear you, but
completely breaking up.
I can hear you, but your voice is very low.
Hello?
Nothing.
Well, this is extremely frustrating.
If it's any consolation, we can hear you pretty decent.
But what about Izzat Original's point? I think that was a very good point that she mentioned, that if competition is getting higher and people are raising prices, it allows the opportunity for the newcomers, right? So if they will make a new university which will have lower fees and lower fees for the students, so they can increase their business because it will attract more people. What about that point? I think that saves capitalism.
Right, that is like the premise of competition leading to lower prices. Yes, that is a tenet but a component of what would naturally occur under capitalism, and that's why I am not so concerned about regulatory pricing.
But here's
it will tend
yes.
towards lower prices if you allow competition.
I think that was a very great point. However, there is a catch. I mean, let me give you another example, right? For this university's example, let's just say that there is a university who has increased the fees, and now it is like very rich. So now, because it has become very rich, and it ties into the point of philosophy, philosophy, philosophy's point, that if a person gets richer and richer, now money is not just in this world, money is not just attached to basic necessities, but also to having ties with Supreme Court officials, right? To court officials. Now, the person who has increased...
I think we said... don't believe that was our take. I'm sorry.
But I'm just making a point. I'm just making a point. A person who has increased amount of money because of capitalism, now he becomes so much stronger that he can influence his rules, which is just like the government stance. So this is another worry that the richer people are taking on the lower class people. When they become rich, they can take on the lower class people because they have more links with Supreme Court, they have more links with armies, they have more links with media, so they can just bully down the lower class people, right? They cannot allow their business to grow. So that's another worry. That's why, as I suggest, that there should be a regulatory body, there should be a method of regulation, and socialism, and more specifically, I believe Islamic socialism is the best model.
Right. So you were bringing up that you have someone who gets rich in capitalism, then they have a lot of concentrated wealth with which they can lobby the government. It seems as though my biggest hang-up with this is that when you have all of these concentrated resources, you can go to just an entity that has a monopoly on the ability to fuck with other people. Like you go to the government.
If there was no government, you couldn't make the government put laws on everyone else.
Yeah. So the behavior of capitalists, in regards to how they interact with government, can be shitty, and often is shitty.
Right.
But the problem I primarily have is that we have one institution that monopolizes like military force within a given region. Like that is the bigger problem, and it is not. Like getting wealthy is not the problem.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so you have regulation in this regard, that you want to regulate people to not like be able to get this powerful, or you don't let people with that much power.
That's socialism.
Influence you. Well, the regulation is being carried out by someone, and that someone is just as susceptible to as what?
When you talk about regulation, it becomes a socialist model, right? Because free market ends if there is.
But the people.
The point is the regulation itself. The people who regulate are not human beings who can and will, or even people who can be bought. So they too are corrupt. They too can make a mess and treat poor people badly.
I do not expect the people who make up government to be especially moral people, even more so than like the big bad capitalist. If you entrust them to regulate, I don't see that as leading to any better results than deregulation or non-regulation.
And we want to jump in with a little correction there. Earlier on, we did not say anything about having money allows you to access more of the Supreme Court and the politicians and everything. We were specifically advocating and establishing the fact that senators and governors are not paid well. State workers and government workers are not paid well. Some of them, some senators are barely above the poverty line just from the salary they get from their position. That leaves them with very little option other than to accept lobbying, requests and things like that. But we don't think that limiting the companies from having so much money would stop lobbying. We think having elected officials that are actually paid decently would stop them from being so inclined to have to take.
Also, you would have to have the law applied to them. Like, with the biggest issue we have in Canada, because the politicians here are paid massively well, the big problem we have is that a politician is not reliable. So if, for example, Trudeau has, I don't know what is this, 4 ethics violation, every person that is not a government, leader of some sort would be in jail. Because he's a politician. I mean, that is just in your face stupid.
Yeah.
How do we get around it? What's the solution? The problem is the people who get a bit of power want to give themselves the best things and fuck other people. How do we get around it? What's the solution?
Well, the buck's got to stop somewhere, as we mentioned earlier.
Does it? I don't know. Does it? Maybe.
I would say the best solution is we take down as many barriers as there are to have like a wide variety of successful people. So you have, I don't know. Let's take an example. healthcare. No.
I
Medical
have an
licensure.
idea, Auntie.
No.
Take Facebook, Google, and Twitter.
Okay.
They have like this massive conglomerate, and they basically have an oligarchy. Now, as long as there is no massive competition, they can just work in unison. They don't really compete with each other all that much, but they all together can decide, okay, this is what's being said and this is what's not being said. Now, if you now suddenly have no regulation whatsoever that stops parallels from coming up, if you have no, massive regulation that, for example, stops, what was the other one, Odyssey to come up, stuff like that. Like if you have much more options, much more systems that can pop into place, the people will over time move over to those other platforms, and then Google and so on will no longer have a monopoly. But that is, because of how the regulations are set up, that is very, very hard for anyone to achieve because of the regulations.
Are you suggesting that government could work the same way? Like we could go, oh, we don't want that Congress. Let's all jump in and do our stuff with this Congress and follow their laws. I'm not sure I follow.
Well, I am opposed to government. I think we could do just fine without a government.
So you and I could just, if it came down to it, like if we had some land dispute, you mean I could just duke it out or have a duel?
So
or whatever fucking nonsense.
A lot of the things that government does, I think, could be done by other institutions.
I will go further than that, and I'm totally on board. Most of the things that government does could be better done by other institutions.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, we could have a duel, or we could...
People get shot in duels. Last time I got shot, it hurt like the devil.
Right. I'd like to avoid shooting. I mean, in kind of like the conceptualized law I have in the absence of government, we would go to, we'd sue each other, and we'd go to arbitration. Because generally, shooting each other is costly. I don't want to get shot, you don't want to get shot. There's an easier way to settle disputes.
Without a government, we go to arbitration. There'd be no courts without government.
Let me propose a solution. Should I propose a solution?
Okay, so no, I think you can have courts without government.
Okay.
Then who vests the power in the court?
Yeah, who's in charge of the court?
Who vests?
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, so I have, let's say, I have a gang of war... What's up?
Yeah,
yes?
if he was going to say gang of warlords, we might be slightly off.
Yeah, so I have a gang of warriors that I will pay...
Gang of warriors,
yeah,
that
I will pay...
My government has already stopped your gang of warriors, so we're not getting there.
Right.
Let's go to the next option that we have available to us.
Okay. So you and I, let's say, have two competing firms that provide us security. They could go to war. We pay them to protect us and our stuff, but going to war is expensive, so they will go to an arbitrator. An arbitrator is not a government. It is a court, and it is not invested with power given to it by the people. It is just a court that our two security firms would agree to use in the case.
Allow me to say, you are adorable. Man, I love you. I wish I
Thank
could
you.
see that bright-eyed, bushy tail. That's awesome, man. If I could see life the way you see it, I would be a much happier person, and I assume you're much happier than I am.
We do
probably. You sound miserable.
No,
we do.
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
1870s, during the time when dueling law was still allowed in Europe, people were killing each other all the time for bullshit, including but not limited to a well-recorded account of a woman dueling another woman to the death because she had the audacity to ask her age. Guess you just don't talk about a woman's age in mixed company. But historically speaking, dueling law does seem to result in a lot of people.
I am not advocating that we duel. I'm trying to outline a system in which we could have law, and law as the product of agencies that are currently produced or controlled by the government, like police. We could have law as a consequence of the interaction of private firms.
Say again. I believe you've cut out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think until or unless you do not have moral laws to begin with, this question will always go around in circles. That's what I believe, because I mean, when we are talking,
What moral laws would you demand? Because quite frankly, some moral laws are very, very subjective.
yes.
Yeah.
Someone saying thou shalt not insult my God, that is a very subjective moral law. No one should get upset because someone insults someone else's law. Now we're back to the point where like you can shoot someone for asking for dage.
No, I'm only suggesting that if a government, like for example, let me give you an example. A person who is getting richer and richer because his business has become successful, and government says that to rich people we will implement more taxes. Now, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Will this not regulate the society? Will this not regulate the society somewhat? And the other thing is about a couple of things I would like to mention about this Islamic socialism, which suggests that money should have intrinsic value, that it should be divorced from interest and loans and all those kind of things. What do you think? What do you people have to say about that? Is this a good thing? I think that's a good thing.
Is it an Islamic like law that I can't even have a loan? Like I as a woman, I don't think can even have a loan in Islamic law.
Money should have intrinsic value. What in the hell does that even mean?
This means
no.
this. Let me.
Foundational, guys.
Hang on. Let's
Chill.
He said money should have intrinsic value.
It means
I'm honestly saying, what in the hell does that even mean?
that means that yes.
Please define.
It means
Far more important.
it means
Chill.
no. It means
Let him talk. Let Islam talk.
it means that it should be divorced from loans and interests, right? So money is, for example, if I've taken debt from somebody and doesn't pay him back, so I will have to pay double. So money becomes additional. Intrinsic money means that the money should be in balance. It should. Right now, do you know? Right now, almost all of the countries in the world are in debt. How is this possible even? How is this possible without loan and interests? All of the world are in debt. How do we get them out of debt?
Maybe you should ask a more important question, which is, how is this not obviously what would happen when we have a medium of exchange? People are going to borrow more than they can afford.
If there are no loans and interests,
I'm honestly.
if there are no loans and interests,
We've got to ask him something. We've got to, because he keeps bringing this up, and it is annoying the shit out of us. You keep bringing up moral law and ethical law. Well, we live in Oregon, and we've been living in Oregon for a while. Obviously, we've been out and back in a few times during our time on the streets, but Oregon has a lot of moral laws. We actually have in the top 5 most moral laws. For example, ice cream is not to be bought, sold, nor consumed on Sundays. It is unlawful in our state to whisper.
Let me cut you off.
I was not challenging any specific country's laws on this, but I
want to continue down that route. But hang on.
Generally speaking.
Dude, seriously, I feel like I saw Seth responding to a video that was your voice. Was that you? Was that her? Is that a thing I heard?
That was Islamic.
That was 2 years ago. 2 years back.
Him and so on.
I wasn't as
Okay. So
well.
You guys have found some common between.
No,
Sure.
she simply said, "Hey, I want to come into and have a chat," and I was
Okay,
like,
so-
"Sure, come on and have a chat."
Just really quick, is that I'm one of your patrons, and
Yeah.
I saw you for the first time. I'm like, oh, it's BC, I gotta check this out. And then I saw him in here, and I'm like, oh, he must be like one of her regular hangout people. Did I
No.
misinterpret that? Okay, cool.
No, he just popped in. And
No,
it is, right? That's a running thing with Logic and me.
Mhm.
When we make videos to people, they're always welcome to have a chat. We have no hostility towards anyone. Everyone can just come in and have a chat, and that's just.
I think that's a very
I
very
gotta
good
tell you,
thing.
as somebody who's a consumer of your content and his content and even your content, like getting to meet people as real people is cathartic. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Like, it's just. Also, maybe it's like a little bit weird.
No. I think I should.
Humans, man.
It's interesting. It's interesting where.
Yeah.
One thing
It's interesting the giggler.
Talking about patrons, I'm sorry, I will be just a tinge played with the video. It's rendering, but it has had a few bugs. It will be out before the end of the month.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, I think I would
So,
like to.
back on moral laws.
Okay.
Bringing up moral laws. Oregon has one of the top 5 most number of moral laws. It is illegal to buy, consume, or sell ice cream on Sundays. It is considered unlawful in our law books to whisper dirty statements into your partner's ear during sexual intercourse. Anal sex and oral sex are both illegal. It is illegal to not sell certain books at your bookstore. Like,
When
you say that
when's
should be
the last
in.
when's the last time any of those were enforced?
That's the point we're trying to make.
What do you think would happen the moment anyone tried to enforce any of them?
Yeah.
And the right answer is they would not be laws anymore because they're unconstitutional.
Exactly.
But go ahead. Say your
Moral laws are stupid, and people don't listen to them. And we think
I think it's immoral to kick.
I disagree completely with that.
I also think it should be illegal to kick my dog in the face. So
Yes, exactly. And since
you do with abuse laws specifically founded for the purpose of morality, like when we say moral.
Should I jump in?
Because I know you guys like more cat.
Moral laws in
I think moral laws, I mean, whatever ethics you read, virtue ethics, utilitarianism, Kantian ethics, they will all end up on a definition of happiness, which suggests that all of the people should be happy. So moral laws are based on making everybody happy, right? That's how morality works. So since the beginning of time, people have always adhered to certain values, right? Like every behavioral sciences book will tell you, social sciences book will tell you that these values should be respected because they are happiness is inherent in these values, like social values, cultural values, and education, religious values, and I mean, you get the point. But these values should not be. People should be allowed to make money, but it should not compromise the basic values. That's what I'm trying to suggest. Like education, like social values, cultural values, and a definition of happiness. The regulation is necessary where these values start getting compromised. That's the entire crux of the discussion.